independence in 1964, Zambia was well on its way to forming its identity, from being an example to other African countries to being a copper exporting giant. But there's one part of Zambia's identity forming that is left out in the history books. This is the history of Zamrock. So it's a little after independence. Zambia is building itself up. The copper business is taking off. Zambia is establishing itself as a copper producing giant on the world map and the African map in general. Now in the world scene, there's this shift in what is popular. So what is popular? It's the hippie times. The 1970s are the hippie times. The flowers, the long skirts, the flower crowns, all that jazz. So, and then in this time as well, the popular music bands are the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Elvis Presley, among others. So these are the most popular bands at the time. So their music spreads throughout the world. So when the music spreads, it also spreads to Zambia. Now, this is post-independence Zambia. The few British people that stayed in Zambia at the time wanted to have a taste of this music, this scene. They wanted to enjoy what was going on in their countries of origin. So they started importing Beatles albums into Zambia. Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Elvis Presley, all those people, basically rock, but started importing music. When they started importing this music, Zambians also heard this music, and then they loved it. So this is also the music that certain Zambians are listening to at the time. Young Zambians kind of want to emulate that music. Now, before the music becomes really, really popular, instead of making their own bands and their own music, young Zambians decide to cover the popular music made by the popular bands of the world before they could start making their own. Young people at this time, they have fun. They are free to express themselves. The musicians are free. I wish I was living in that Zambia, to be honest, because this Zambia doesn't really like for expressions. Like the men, like the pictures I saw, the men were wearing like crop tops and flared pants, and their hair would be like rough and it's dreadlocks. Some would have piercings or would wear necklaces. Like, it was just artsy. It was just artsy and beautiful in every form. Like, they were expressing themselves. Among the first of these were Emmanuel Jagarichanda and Ricky Ililunga. These were the kind of the pioneers of Zamrock. Most of these young bands that formed because of influences from international artists performed on the Copper Belt. That is like the pop culture center of Zambia. We give Zambia its pop culture, to be honest. Yeah, so most of them were on the Copper Belt. Most of them were miners, actually, or trying to be miners before they got into music and everything. We formed for miners because miners had money to spend. Formed for miners in clubs and all that stuff. There would be entertainment, even sometimes weddings, but they would mostly do it on a Copper Belt because that's where the money was going. That's where the money was. That's where people who wanted to spend money were, right? Yeah. So the first ever Zamrock album that was commercially produced was The Introduction by The Witch. It was a fusion of psychedelic rock and garage rock. This album, in order for this album to be recorded, the band had to go to Kenya. That was the nearest place where there was a recording studio. They would travel back with 2,000 copies to sell on the Zambian market, and they did. The reason they did go to Nairobi was because there were no recording studios in Zambia, none at all. The Witch was a band in which Emmanuel Jagarichanda was, and then Ricky Ililunga formed a band that was called Mosotunya. For my Zambian audience, I'm sure very familiar with that name, the Victoria Falls. Mosotunya also had to record their music from Kenya and then come back with the records and sell them. Zamrock was a hit. The musicians made their money. It also just became like the copies were not enough because Zambians were consuming this music. Like, the music was good at the time. Because Zambians started making their own music, And there was also people importing international music. There was so much international music on the Zambian market at the time. There was music from Ghanaian bands, there was music from Kenyan bands, also music from the popular bands of the UK, the Beatles, and from the US, Elvis Presley. There's so much music on the Zambian market. On June of 1975, the Zambian president Kenneth Kaunda declared that Zambian radio stations should play 90% of Zambian produced and made music on the airwaves all the time. So it was a win for Zambians. Yeah, and you guys know, if you're if you're Zambian, you know Kaunda was very much pro a unified Zambia, pro Zambians making money, pro Zambians bringing in money and the money staying in Zambia. So that's what the move was about. And Kaunda was an artist himself, so he enjoyed seeing Zambian artists making money off their craft. He enjoyed seeing Zambians consuming Zambian content. I feel like if like content creation on YouTube was a thing in Kaunda's era, I feel like content creators and YouTubers would make money, because Kaunda really loved the arts. Kaunda was about the arts. Like, he respected the arts. Apart from other things, artists used to make their money. So yes, after that was declared, like, Zamrock was just booming. When the bands were formed in the first place, people had side hustles. They had, like, maybe you're a miner but you're also a musician, you're a this but you work somewhere but you're also a musician. Because of what Kaunda did, it helped most of them make a lot of money. So they had to quit their day jobs because they made enough money from making music and selling the records that money was not a problem. They toured, they performed in concerts, they sold records. So really, money was not an issue. Like, artists got their money's worth from creating their art, which is really a good thing. I was really happy when I learned that, to be honest, because honestly, good for them. After that was declared, Zambians started consuming their music, even internationally. Actually, neighboring countries started consuming this music, Zamrock. But Zamrock wasn't Zamrock until DJ Manasepiri coined it Zamrock on, I don't know if it was on live radio or it was just outside of live radio, but DJ Manasepiri coined the term Zamrock, and yeah, it had a name. It was Zamrock. Another key name in the Zamrock era was Pongozi. Pongozi, that name was familiar to me even before I kinda researched this. But yeah, Pongozi did Zamrock, but he made it popular to fuse Zamrock with traditional languages. And of course, the key instrument in Zamrock was the guitar, but he also made it popular to fuse Zamrock with local languages. And it was kind of there that he made an intersection, like, it was kind of an intersection between Zamrock and Kalindula. A lot of us don't know Kalindula, very few of us know Zamrock, but yeah, he kind of pivoted into Kalindula, or kind of birthed, or one of the origin fathers of Kalindula in Zambia. Of course, Kalindula originated from the Congo, but if I'm correct, it originated from the Congo. But yeah, Zamrock was purely Zambian. It was around this time that Keith Mulavo made his hit song Ubuntungwa. Or most of us do know his song, even if we don't really know his song. We know his song when we heard our parents play his song. Or was it a BC? So around this time, Zamrock is set. Internationally, locally, artists making their money, like, it's set. Zambians have their genre, have this identity. We had Zamrock. Life is good in Zambia generally, but the fall of Zamrock came because of different factors. The first one was a drop in copper prices. Now, as you know, if you paid attention in history and civic ed, the fall of copper prices, even to this day, is at the core of many things in Zambia today. So the copper prices on the international market fell, which meant a lot of things for the Zambian economy. Mostly bad things for the Zambian economy. So copper prices fell drastically, which made it hard for artists to import their vinyls in order for them to record. It made it hard and expensive. If vinyls are expensive and it's expensive to record, it also meant records were expensive in terms of consumers to buy. So it was also expensive for consumers to buy those records because they're expensive.
Making a pretty penny, I was traveling the world. But then we did not realize that the world economic order was changing and it was becoming more expensive to order the vinyl.
Another thing was, because the Zambian economy was falling, it was horrible. It started falling. People that usually spent money on recreation stopped. So the miners stopped because the cost of living. So they stopped spending on recreation, which meant few sales for artists, which meant the already expensive records were not selling. There was no demand because Zambians had other priorities. So yeah, copper. To this day, the prices of copper determine everything for Zambians. Wages for workers were low. Were either being reduced or they stayed the same, but prices of consumer goods were expensive because now people had to buy stuff at a higher price, which meant prioritizing. The second reason why Zamrock fell was because of our neighboring countries. Because our neighboring countries we're still fighting for their independence after Zambia already had its independence, and KK was an active part in our neighbors gaining independence. Zambia became affected, particularly Kaunda's support to end the apartheid era in South Africa.
I can never sell out Africa. Never. Not me. Not these boys here. Not these girls here. We are men and women of principle. We have done all these things in search of peace. But it has to be genuine peace, based on sincere, genuine majority rule. Anything else, you can kill us. Zambians will be born out of our blood. Will continue to fight.
That kind of cost Zambians, in the sense that because of Zambia's involvement in the end of apartheid, colonialists started looking to Zambia in order to end Zambian support of the end of apartheid. Curfews were introduced in Zambia, which meant that the clubs people used to go to at the end of the day, over the weekend, and clubs usually was at night. So there was curfews, which meant people could not play in clubs and discos. Sometimes the artists would have a private thing, and then they would be locked into the club, and then the people would be locked into the club, those that wanted to, and then they would enjoy their night, and then come out in the morning. But then it wasn't a very sustainable thing, because if you don't keep a curfew, you'd either be arrested or be beaten and all that stuff. So it wasn't very sustainable. So musicians started losing their revenue and their monies because they couldn't perform. Performance is a very important part of an artist's revenue, so they couldn't perform. There were blackouts in Zambia because of Zambia's involvement in apartheid. There was no power, and if there's no power, there's no concert, there's no club, there's nothing. So that's another way Zamrock artists lost their revenue. It was a very fearful time at that point because any wrong move, if you find yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're dead. I saw a video that Ricky Lumanga was talking. He was saying he actually saw. I don't know if it's him or a friend of his who actually saw someone get shot and killed. Like his ears were blown off during that time, because I don't know if it was just because of a curfew or just because of fear, but his ears were. He lost his ability to hear because he was shot at, and his ears were bleeding. So that's how fearful it was. That's how scary it was to move around and just do certain things at that time. Had to be out at a certain time, be home at a certain time, because your life was in danger. Because Zambia was hoping South Africa tried to get its independence. Another reason why Zamrock fell was because of the rise of DJs. Now I know DJs are supposed to play music. Okay, so the way it worked was artists got their monies from performing. That's how they got their money. So if they released an album, they would go on tour to perform that album. Of course, they would sell, and then they would go on tour. People would buy tickets or sing along to their favorite artist's album while they performed. When discos and DJs became popular, kind of put a pin in how Zamrock artists got their money, because it was easier for a DJ to play different genres of music on his device, in his DJ booth, and people enjoy, than for people to pay to see one band perform their music, not be diverse, not perform another person's music. Like, people found it easier to enjoy if it was a DJ there and they played different music. Like, they played Zamrock, they played music from Ghana, they played music from South Africa, like a mix of different genres in order for them to enjoy themselves. So yeah, the biggest evil that happened that contributed to the fall of Zamrock was the HIV pandemic of the 1980s. Now, this is the big one. This is a very big one. Kind of started as a myth at the time that there was this disease, this mysterious disease, kind of like the way COVID started. That's the way it started back then. And if you are in showbiz or the lifestyle musicians, it's that women come to them and all these things happen. Like, they're superstars, so they kind of the artists didn't kind of take it seriously, and most of them got the disease. Most of them, if you went to the hospitals, you would find them, they would have HIV. Some of them would have HIV and AIDS, and most of them at the time were wiped out. Now, during all these little factors building up to contribute to the fall of Zamrock, Ricky Delunga and Emmanuel Jakari Chanda, they kind of escaped this. One of them, I think it's Ricky, he went to an international country. I forgot what that was, or indicate. And he wasn't in Zambia at the time when a lot of his mates were being wiped out by the virus. So they only came back afterwards. But most of Zamrock artists, pioneers, bandmates, guitarists, most of them died because of the HIV pandemic of the 1980s. And it was really, really sad. Generally, not just for the artists, but for the general population, because, to be honest, a lot of Zambians died. I don't think we, the young people of today, actually know or take this information seriously, considering how mad we are moving now. But that's where we're going if you look at the statistics of HIV in this country. Not to turn this into an educational thing, but I just needed to say this. If we, young people of today, are not careful, that's where we're going. A massive wipeout, to be honest, because the numbers are not in our favor, guys. It was a really sad time for Zambia in the 1980s. But yeah, that's the fall of Zamrock. Today, I don't know Zamrock because of Sampa the Great. That's the only reason. I thought Zambia's genre was Kalindula until when I was watching it, I learned Kalindula is not actually a Zambian genre. It originated in the Congo. Zamrock is the Zambian genre. So today, if you're looking for a taste of Zamrock, you are going in the direction of Sampa the Great. Not all of her songs are fit the Zamrock genre. Some are just straight hip hop. But never forget, obviously, that's Zamrock inspired. Absolutely. I kind of heard some Zamrock music from The Witch and stuff. I didn't finish, so I can't really. Some is good. Some of the music is good. But yeah, never forget. And Final Form. I don't really know much of Stampa's catalog, but those two are the songs that can give you an idea of Stampa's, of what Zamrock is. Hey guys, that's the history, the rise and fall of Zamrock. Do you guys think Zamrock will ever make a resurgence? I know yes, I mentioned somebody, but I don't. Do you ever think like it will become mainstream like Zambians? I know there's a certain like indie category to Zambian music. Frankie is part of that. so I'm going to leave her Spotify link below. But just concerning like Zamrock, do you guys think like it will ever make a resurgence? Like we'll have a Zambian music category. You know how when you think Afrobeats, the first thing you're thinking of is Nigerian music. Don't even lie, it's Nigerian music. That's the first thing. That's the first thing you're going to. If you say I'm a piano, you know straight away it's South African music. I just want to know, do you guys think Zamrock will ever be rebirthed? Like Zambia will have its own genre of music. That would be nice if that happened, to be honest. It would really be nice. But yeah, I found this to be quite interesting. It's not very much so wicked. Maybe like the 4 is wicked, but this is more like a history lesson, to be honest, because I really found it fascinating. I was interested ever since Never Forget came out. So tell me what you guys think in the comments. Would you like to see Zambia have its own genre? Do you think if Zamrock was still very popular today, the creative industry and the arts industry in Zambia would be at a different level than it is today? Yeah, those are thoughts I remained with. I think it would. If Zambia was more impressive of creative arts, I think the industry would be quite as big as it is in countries like South Africa and Nigeria. Yeah, tell me what you guys think in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to recommend other stories that I can do or tell you guys about, and yeah, enjoy your week.